We're very glad you all stay with us. We know it's a long day. It's Friday afternoon in December, and we're going to try to make you glad you stay for the next 30 minutes. So if you be with that. We're going to talk about place-based innovation. The place is Tennessee. We have a fantastic panel. Dr. Thomas Zacharia, the director of Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Oak Ridge is 6,000 staff, $2.6 billion budget. Thomas has been there for 35 years. Since 2017, he's had the top job. I will challenge everybody in this room to go to the December 2 Wall Street Journal and read the article about his career, and I will guarantee you, you will be glad you did. And I'll say there's odds are better than not, you'll pass it on to somebody else to learn from it. Because you want to hear a story about a dad helping a son, and he was the son. To take right choices in life, that's a great example. So, Thomas, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Daniel Diermeier, Chancellor of Vanderbilt University, is also author of 4 books, Daniel, if I have it right. Reputation Rules, A Company's Most Valuable Asset, was the one I chose to read before I introduced you. Then I found a story about one of my old companies, so we have to talk later about that. But as being, I live in your community, I live a mile off the Vanderbilt campus, and Daniel, I can say honestly, your reputation personally rules very well. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Donde Plowman, Chancellor of UT Knoxville. I went back to the Knoxville News Sentinel.
Yes.
And what they predicted you would do, because some of your predecessors didn't necessarily go out, in the way you want to, and they predicted you would set a vision and change the university. As one of your alumni, Donde, you've done that.
Wow.
And more than just football, you've done that. Mm-hmm. So as I looked at how you created that, you had 3 slogans I could find that students tell me about: creative, compassionate, and flexible.
Thank you.
Is that pretty close?
That's what we use. Those were our 3 values to get through COVID.
Yeah.
If you don't know what to do, be creative, be compassionate, be flexible, and it'll be fine. And after COVID, we decided, actually, those are good values for the rest of the time.
Yeah, that's great. So.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So just a couple words to get started. I want our panelists to take the big bulk of the time here, but you have at UT the Howard Baker Center.
Yes, we do.
And one of the slogans of that center is, you may be right. And what Howard Baker would refer to is you should listen to the people on the other side of the aisle, not because they're just respectful, but they just may be right. And so one reason that Tennessee is a great place for a place-based innovation is 2 former governors, Phil Bredesen, a Democrat, the 48th governor, and Bill Haslam, a Republican, the 49th governor, under the Howard Baker Institute, have come together to have discussions with each other about how to solve problems, and they just don't take their standard positions and walk away. They listen to each other, they role model it. So I just think if every state in the union had 2 governors that could come together and do that, it'd be a pretty good place. So one reason you might want to consider about Tennessee is that kind of example that's being set. I talked to Phil Bredesen, one of those governors, asked him to tell me about this debate he was having with Bill. And I said, tell me what's the one thing that makes Tennessee such a great place to be. And then 30 minutes later, he told me a lot more than one. So I picked out the one I think is very useful, is we make a place for them before they come. So there's a new Ford electric truck factory announced this spring, $5.6 billion total investment for the overall project. But that site was prepared years ago. It was prepared cooperatively with TVA. It was identified as a mega site. So when Ford was looking around, there was a place to come already, and a welcoming environment. And I think that is a very critical piece. And as a result of that, you might have seen just last month, LG Chemical announced a $3 billion battery plant to be located nearby. So I think that's very critical. But what Phil pointed out, that 80% of the growth, though, is coming from existing businesses. Of course, those new plants help the existing businesses. CNBC named Tennessee the 6th best place for business this year. And when they look at their factor around economics, the 2nd best place for business. So I think that's clearly what's taking place. In talking to Phil, he did give me a question to put before you, which you have your option to answer if you like in your comments, but he would say your institutions are a bit opaque, and you may even have processes inside that drive that to keep you more internal. I think he's challenged you on this before, Daniel, as we've talked, but nevertheless, that was an opportunity, he thought. So if I could leave that with you, and could you start us off?
Sure. Well, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say the two governors have a podcast called You Might Be Right, and it is getting lots of appeal. It's a political podcast. They have somebody from each end of the spectrum, and you will learn so much. So yes, thank you. And I also think, okay, Taylor, you took a moment of personal privilege this morning and said that your football team made it into a bowl, and we were all congratulating you. The best bowl game will be the Orange Bowl. It is being played on December 30th. Both teams wear orange, and it's called the Orange Bowl. It will be a lot of orange. And root for the Volunteers. So I want to just, I've been thinking about all of this, and we can get back to Governor Bredesen's comment. I think universities bring to this conversation about innovation really three kind of powerful influences. And we've been hearing bits and pieces of it this morning, but I want to tell you just say what they are. I've got 3 Ps: the power of people, the power of partnerships, and the power of place. And I think some of the successes we're having in the state of Tennessee, we're all 3 of us and other institutions working around those. So the power, each of these 3 Ps, I think, means we have to, as universities, rethink ourselves. And I think Governor Bredesen would agree with how we have to rethink ourselves. The people, the workforce, we're training them. But we have to do a better job of getting curriculum quickly put together and responding to the needs that the companies sitting in this room feel. And working with community colleges all the way up to the research labs in aligning all of that and letting the research inform the degree programs. So the people, we have the power of people. That's a great opportunity. The power of partnerships. We're doing partnerships different in the state of Tennessee than I think we ever did before. You have these big institutions, the National Lab, University of Tennessee, you have Vanderbilt University, you have TVA, you have the state government, the governor investing in collective, collaborative efforts. And so thinking about partnerships used to be like, okay, I guess I have to work with some of those people over in physics. I'm really in electrical engineering, but way beyond that. And then the 3rd P is really the power of place. Universities all take up a big place. We have a lot of capital invested in labs and buildings and land and structures, and rethinking co-locating companies. We have VW on our Cherokee farm. We have Eastman there working. So creating labs where industry and the professors and their grad students and their postdocs are all working together. People from the lab, faculty, people from industry. And I think those are pieces of what we're beginning to really pick up on in Tennessee. So those 3 Ps, all of us especially us land grant folks, that's our responsibility, I think.
Daniel?
It's all yours.
So we didn't make it to a bowl game this year, but we congratulate our fierce rivals,
I'm sorry.
like a few miles over there on the east. But well, first of all, thanks for having me here. This is a wonderful conference and a hugely important topic, I think. So I'm a big fan of Nick Pinchuk, and so it was great to see him on the panel before. And Nick always says we're proud, but we're not satisfied, which is I think a wonderful mantra of how we're thinking about it. At Vanderbilt, in Nashville and in Tennessee, there are a lot of things that are going extremely well. The region is booming, Nashville is booming. We can't build houses fast enough. There's a lot of influx of talent. Oracle, Amazon are building big centers, and I think the secret of that is, along the people and place and partnership side, is it's a great business-friendly climate. It has a great quality of life. It's beautiful. Has great culture. That is a total winner. So that's great on the regional side, on the place side, and I think on the university side, I think this is something that is, sometimes still a little underestimated or underappreciated, is like what powerhouses universities are for innovation systems. We talk about it, but the magnitude is quite staggering. There's extremely interesting research now by innovation economist Ben Jones at Northwestern, the former place where I used to hang out. Did some great work on that, most recently in an interesting paper with Larry Summers. And what they do is they kind of estimate the economic returns in just of STEM fields we're basically valuing patents and then looking back to citation trees. Every dollar invested in research in university generates at least $5 in social return. That's astonishing, and that's just in this one area. But I think we also can do more, and that comes back to Governor Bredesen's gentle nudging. How do we do even more to be more connected with our communities, to work more with partners, and to think more about being an active part of fostering innovation economies and bringing this tremendous innovation capacity that universities have in partnership so that we have real impact. And I think that's something where we didn't always succeed. And it's certainly something that we at Vanderbilt are very committed to. I arrived 2 years ago, right in the middle of COVID. Timing is everything in life, and so I empathized, some of the challenges there. But it's something that I think we can do a lot more. And just to give you one example of that, we a couple of weeks ago concluded a test. It's called I-24 test, where we basically worked. We created a whole real-life testing facility to look at like AI-based traffic control. And we did it, it's kind of, think about it like real cars driving around on an interstate, but with AI-enabled cruise control. And it required deep collaboration with the Tennessee Department of Transportation, both on the funding side, and they put like 3 sensors on the freeway. We worked together with a whole bunch of other universities. We worked together with car manufacturers. As you know, there are many leading car manufacturers are in Tennessee, and in this particular case, Nissan built us 100 custom-made vehicles that had this enhanced cruise control. It created a billion, or a terabyte of data. We're analyzing it right now, and it basically allowed us in real time, it's kind of like an MRI, to understand where traffic jams come from, what the safety implications, what the energy implications are. Nobody could have done this on their own. Not the Department of Transportation, not Nissan, not the universities, but by putting these 3 forces together, we could do something that we believe is tremendous and will create a lot of insights. And the next step for us is to broaden that. And I'm so glad to have my 2 partners here, because we're working on new strategies, particularly on the mobility side, electric vehicles, together with the University of Tennessee, with Oak Ridge, with the TVA, all together to really think about what is it that we can bring to the table to deal with this tremendous challenge of the future of transportation. So we're proud, but we're not satisfied. There's a lot that universities do already, but I think we can do a lot more.
I think, let me just start by saying that we do not have a football team, and we are not going to a bowl game. Now that I've got it out of the way, let me pick up the thread, the original premise of the question, which was, Governor Bredesen's 2 statements. That is, we prepare things ahead of time, and that perhaps we're a bit opaque. And I think there is quite a bit of truth and wisdom to it. And I say that from the perspective of Oak Ridge National Laboratory, one of the oldest. We will be celebrating 80th year anniversary next year of the Manhattan Project. And if you think about Manhattan Project, I would say it is true. It was the New Deal and TVA that really resulted in Oak Ridge being located where it is. And so that statement that Tennessee prepared things before for a strategic opportunity, I think is really important. In fact, Tom Mason is not here, but the IRA gave $1.5 billion for Office of Science. And the first thing that he asked me was that, have you taken all the knives out of your back? Because really a third, $500 million of that $1.5 billion came to Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And the statement was that, strategically preparing for a random event, which is what IRA, nobody could have predicted IRA, is something that the laboratory did, and I will connect that to the innovation piece. So I think that's part of it. The other thing is the opaqueness come from, again, our genesis, right? Skidmore, Owings Merrill designed Oak Ridge, the city of Oak Ridge. It was designed without a city center. Why? Because they did not want people to come together in the evening and put the pieces together about what they were working on, and discover that they were working on an atomic bomb, right? And so that is a culture of the organization. So what are we trying to do to differentiate that? Well, let's go back to TVA, and Dan touched on it. TVA is a really competitive advantage for Tennessee, in addition to everything that has been discussed, because TVA today is a nation's largest public utility. It's 65% carbon neutral. And that is a competitive advantage for industry and our partners to co-locate with us in Tennessee. They will get to 80% carbon neutral by 2030, and going to 100% carbon neutral by 2035, 2038 would require deployment of small modular reactors. And the board has approved about deployment of 15 small modular reactors. So I don't think there is any other region that has a clear line of sight to tackling climate change and energy transition the way the Tennessee Valley offers. And we touched on mobility, and mobility is also key. And today, Tennessee is the 4th largest producer of automobiles. Next year, because of the investments by Ford, Volkswagen, and others, Tennessee will likely be the largest producer of electric vehicles in the United States, and all the supply chain that supports that. So that is a real competitive advantage. If you think about all electricity is carbon neutral and all transportation is electric, we can lead by example, not regionally, nationally, internationally. That is a real competitive advantage. Now I'll touch on opaqueness, and I think the last several years, we've been working on it. So in fact, just recently, the last few days, the Economic Innovation Group, which is a bipartisan policy group led by Sean Parker, has just come out with a study that talks about, as part of CHIPS and Science Act, it is envisaged that there will be about 20 or so innovation cities or innovation hubs, not in the traditional coastal area. Because if you think about it, most of the innovation jobs in the United States is in about 30 to 40 counties in a country that has over 3,000 counties. You know it is not scalable. And so there's been a lot of effort to move that innovation into areas where there is the complement of a public land grant institution, R1 institution, UT, Vanderbilt University, the nation's largest science and energy laboratory in Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and TVA, the largest public utility. That is a competitive advantage. And so we have done several things together with the UT and TVA. One is with the help of the governor. Governor Haslam started the process of actually creating a voucher so that any industry coming to the state of Tennessee is given a voucher to collaborate with the national lab, right? That is a competitive advantage. DOE has created a innovation enterprise called Innovation Crossroads, and recently between UT, TVA, and Oak Ridge, we have started an accelerator called Techstars Accelerator to drive jobs in the new economy. So among ourselves, we are really partnering, and I think the leadership from the top allowing us to partner is a competitive advantage.
This is great. And I had to think back about 10 years ago. I was trying to get a meeting between the two chancellors at that time. And they said, we'll go, but it has to be in Knoxville. I couldn't go to Nashville on the Vanderbilt campus, and vice versa. It took about 6 weeks to get them to come in the room together, but the deal was you can't show the logo of the other university in the picture. True story. Just, you work together great. I don't see any of that anymore. What's the magic sauce that makes that happen? Because it's not just with you three, it's across the state.
I was going to say it was these three, but okay. I would like to say, so in the last year, the governor included in his budget $80 million for the UT Oak Ridge Innovation Institute. It's a long name, but it's an important name. And it is a collective. We've come together to try to invent this strange thing that's never existed, where each of us put in resources. We're putting interdisciplinary UTK programs in this, scientists from the lab. We're going to hire faculty, attract a lot more doctoral students, and train students to go out and help with this innovation economy. Not all PhD students need to or want to go become a faculty member. And so that's just one example. But I think I'll give you another example is that, and I've learned this from Thomas, I've heard him say this many times, that the lab science is driven, see if I'm right about this, by the mission of DOE in America and the government. The university's science is usually driven by whatever scientists our faculty want to work on. This year, we just announced yesterday a $50 million 5-year cluster hiring that we're doing at the university. It was new money that's going into how we hire, and the clusters are formed around, led by our Office of Research, Innovation, and Economic Development, our Vice Chancellor's here, organized around the big issues in our region. And so that is a movement a little bit towards more how you do it and less how we use it. Not all the research is in that. And so we got a phone call yesterday from the, I want Governor Bredesen to know this. The president of the Chamber of Commerce called, saw the press release, said, thank you. So I don't think we've done a good enough job in the past of trying to drive our research in the directions of the needs of the region. We've done a lot of it, but haven't made it public. So that's one response I would say.
So I think it's a great question, and I think we have in the past not collaborated enough. And one thing that as you can tell from my accent, I'm not a native Tennessean, and so when I came, I was like, there are all these like rivalries and this and that and the other, and the divisions of the state, the west and middle and east, and my view was, we're not competing against Knoxville or against Memphis or against Chattanooga. We're competing as a state against the coast. And so we really need to think about this as a one Tennessee strategy. And so I was fortunate enough, I was able to visit Oak Ridge right away. We met in Knoxville. And I had some experience from Chicago because I've been on the board of Argonne, and we had done a great partnership on quantum between Argonne, the University of Chicago, and the University of Illinois in Urbana. So this is a natural thing because you got to expand your set of possibilities and your set of aspirations, and there are so many things that are going great in the state. But if you get stuck about who wins on football on Saturday and basketball on Wednesday, and who has the logo, you're not going to get anywhere. So I am totally committed to that, and we'll fight it on the gridiron and on the basketball court, and then but we work together for the best of both our institutions for the entire region.
I was just going to say that we have talked about our institution, but I was just going to bring up a different part of the state, Chattanooga. The Electric Power Board in Chattanooga, we started a collaboration in early 2012 timeframe. And that partnership allowed us to effectively compete for leadership in computing. So if you think about the scope of Oak Ridge, it's technology, working with the likes of IBM, NVIDIA, AMD, HPE, et cetera, innovating at the speed of light, if you will, and then energy and energy transitions. And it required a partnership with the city of Chattanooga. In return, Chattanooga embraced it, and today became it is now known as the gig city world over. And so I think these are examples where you can have highly resilient electricity in a relatively small metro area. And so it is an instantiation of how we have come together to lift up everybody. And I think that is what it takes, and I believe we have what it takes to become the next innovation hub for US.
I just want to add one little comment to that, and I think you noticed this in your introductory remark, but we're blessed with having, I think, leadership that has been visionary over the years and is pragmatic and wants to do the best for the state and for the community. And we get along. I think that's, we get along, we trust each other, we spend time together, we work on projects together. And I think there's an important shift in perspective here. We've heard a lot about clusters, and I think in the United States, people think about innovation always in a kind of municipal sense. So it's cities competing against each other. But there's another way to think about it, and Israel was mentioned. And Israel has much more of a countrywide strategy. It also happens to have like 4 hubs, just like we do. But I think there's room to think about innovation, not just at the level of a particular city competing, Knoxville competing against Nashville, against Chattanooga, but as a state level. And I think this is something that I would say we're maybe not pioneering, but we're certainly invested in, and we want to make work, and I think we made great progress on that. That's good.
I'd like to add one thing. I came to this I'm an organizational scientist. I used to teach leadership. How do you lead big change? And I always said leadership is the willingness to act. It's not so much a title or a role. It's just like doing something. And one of the things I think you see with our 3 organizations, others in the state, is not just the leaders, but the organization saying, okay, we're in. We don't really have this completely designed, but we're in on working together and making something happen for our state. So I'm really proud to be part of it and proud to be part of these big organizations that are trying to change it.
You answered my question great. We have a minute left. Thomas, we'll start with you. One thing about Oak Ridge that people don't know that they should know. Very quick.
Oak Ridge National Laboratory, I think in partnership with UT on this Innovation Institute, is going to be the equivalent to the best research campus in the world, and both of us are committed to making that happen, where students can come in and get trained in the best scientific facilities and partner with people in the energy transition.
So we have this reputation for having tremendous education and so on, but we're really a research powerhouse, particularly in the biomedical side, but also in other areas. So we have $1 billion a year research budget, and have had tremendous impact, particularly during COVID in a whole variety of different areas. So I think this is something we need to also talk more about because it's a tremendous source of pride for us.
Good point.
We really do have a body farm. Incredible forensic research and forensic training happening. It's incredible research. It's known as the Body Farm, but I'm very proud of it, and it's no longer underneath the stadium. It's in its own local place. Little tidbit.
I think you topped the list. Thank our panel very much.